Welcome on into the Stroke Limit Reach podcast. I am your host, Nick, here with my co-host, Mike.
Yo.
And y'all know what it is. It's predictions time. And this is the ACC episode. We are so excited. This is another conference where I feel like there is a lot of teams in the middle of the pack, more towards the top half. I'm so used to saying middle of the pack because we're used to 14 teams. Now we got like fucking 18. So when I say middle of the pack, I'm talking about like upper middle of the pack, top six-ish teams. There could be some chaos in this conference. We talked about the SEC last week. We talked about having teams, be 11-1, have a bunch of them, or a bunch of teams at 10-2. This is a conference where I think you could see a lot of teams around the 6-2, 7-1 mark for the conference play. And Mike, I know we were talking about it earlier, but that is just because a lot of these teams don't play each other. So it's like a lot of them have an opportunity where the tiebreakers got to come into place. So interesting conference here, and it's just so exciting. We are at T-minus, so we're filming this on a Tuesday or a Monday. We are only essentially we're 11 days away from a Florida State game. It sounds so great. Sounds so great, folks. We are so excited, and we're so glad that you guys are here with us. And we have so much exciting stuff for you guys coming up. Without further ado, let's get right into the ACC, Mike. Why don't you lead us off? And just like, I'll go ahead and say it again for our listeners that might not have watched the SEC episode. If not, you can watch these in whatever order you want. If you don't care about the SEC, you don't have to give it a listen. But there's a lot of crazy takes in that one, so I'd recommend it. But for the folks that did not listen to the last episode, how this is going to work. I am going to list off my first 5. Mike will list off his first 5, and we'll keep doing that, basically snaking it down the board here until we get through all the teams. So first 5, and then 6 through 11, and vice versa. We'll get all the way down to the bottom, starting off with, obviously, the teams we'll talk about the most. So, Mike, give me your first 5. If you want, give me a little explanation. You know the rules, and then I will come at you if I hear any crazy shit.
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, it gets kind of spicy a little early. Obviously, Miami fan, I feel like we're up for a good season. And by good season, I think we have potential to go undefeated with a very cupcake schedule. Outside of Florida State and Florida, those are our 2 key matchups. I think there's a couple other big games with Virginia Tech and honestly Louisville. But I feel like when it just comes to a talent differential, Miami is one of the most talented teams in football this year. And I think they could very well show it. So I have them at number 1 going 8-0 in the conference. I have them going 12-0 because I think that's our ceiling that we're capable of reaching. Granted, coaching errors can absolutely fuck us. We've seen it before every year for the past couple of years. I think right now we're at a point talent outweighs the coaching fuck-ups, and we'll be straight. So leading off, Miami 8-0. Now right after them, I have Florida State at 7-1 in the conference. Overall, I have them going 11-1 with their only loss being to Miami. Number 3 is where it gets a little spicy. I'm very big on the dark horse team, Virginia Tech. I have them at 7-1 in the conference. Overall, I think they're going 10-2 with a loss to a team like Rutgers out of conference because it was just a random weird game. And then I have them losing to, again, at Miami for their 5th game of the year. After them, I got NC State, another 7-1 team. NC State, overall for the season, I got them going 11-1, their only loss being at Clemson.
Who was this?
NC State.
Is 7-1?
Correct.
11-1 total.
Yes.
Okay.
Then number 5, I have Clemson, 6-2 in the conference, 9-3 overall, with a loss to Georgia to open it up, a loss at Virginia Tech, and a loss at FSU.
So, yeah, I'll give you the open mic there. Let's just go ahead and start off at the top. Miami. I don't necessarily disagree. Maybe, because the two of us, I'll read off my 5 real quick, and then we could debate it back and forth because just how this goes, I'll break the rules a little bit because I have the same 5 teams, just different order. I have Miami, 11-1, 8-0 in the conference, the one loss being our bet to Florida. I think that's just a loss that Miami is going to get, given the big ad of Cam Ward going into the hostile environment. It's nothing against him. I think he's going to be a great player. It's just worst case scenario because you're going into a super hostile environment against a team that has nothing to lose because they're not supposed to do well. And Miami's going to have a limited offense just because a limited playbook. You know, anyone who's played football out there knows that year one in a new system, there has to be training wheels for a little bit. So that is the one loss I give them. The thing that scares me about Miami, I just worry that there's a couple slip-up points that could happen to the season to bring them more down towards the floor that we were talking about. And if Miami does that, it brings in a load of teams behind them. And that's where I think you can get to a huge tiebreaker situation. But overall, I have to kind of overlook the potential for a fuck-up and go with the 11-1 record and 8-0. I think if there's any year for Miami to make a run and make the playoffs, it's this one. I just hope that they can get last year out of their mind and start off fresh, you know, with the new quarterback. I don't see that being a problem. My second team, the team that makes the conference championship game, because there was a tiebreaker situation, so let's off 2 and 3 real quick. Florida State, 10-2, 7-1. NC State, 10-2, 7-1. The reason that there is a tiebreaker to break those two teams apart is the common opponent of Clemson, which I have NC State losing to, and I have Florida State winning at home against Clemson.
What are both those teams' other losses?
So my loss for NC State is to Tennessee early in the season. Okay. Eye on Tennessee. I think Tennessee will be hyped up for that game because it's a cross-conference battle, but which scares me for Tennessee because they go in to play Oklahoma, I believe, the following week. So it's kind of interesting. But I just see Tennessee. It's a neutral site. I see Tennessee just sneaking it out there. I think they'll have a little more, not to be a homer, but like strength in the trenches that puts them forward in that game. And I think they're really going to make Grayson McCall throw the ball. Grayson McCall, I think, is a potential, if NC State goes 10-2 and 7-1 and misses the conference finals to Florida State, I think that you still could potentially see a ACC Offensive Player of the Year with Grayson McCall. I think this is the perfect system for him. He doesn't have the best arm talent, but he was amazing at Coastal Carolina with the RPO game. And I think this is a perfect offense. He's going to go in. They're going to be run heavy with the RPO, and he's got enough with his legs. He's a very mobile quarterback. He's sneaky fast. He's going to have a lot of, run game schemes for him. I'm really high on NC State. Like, the more and more I look at the NC State-Tennessee game, it scares me. But I think Tennessee, again, trenches is just going to put them over the edge. I know that NC State is not rebuilding, but they have pieces they lost last year. But overall, I think they're still going to be a great team. They are my dark horse, like you say, Virginia Tech.
See, that's the one thing I'll disagree with. I just don't think this team's a dark horse. Like, I think this is a team that is legitimately here.
Dark horse because no one outside the ACC is talking about NC State. That's what I mean. That's fair. I'm not saying this team is like middle of the road talent and they're going to explode to a 10-2. I just think they're a team because of this 12-team era of college football for the playoff, that there's a shit pile of other teams we're talking about, like 5 potentially in the SEC, 3 potentially in the 4 potentially if we don't hate on Penn State in the Big Ten. Mm-hmm. So I just think there's a lot of other teams for big name brands. NC State's not really a big name brand.
Yeah.
But there always have been that team as a thorn in the side for like a Thursday night game prime time. Yeah. So I think this is the year they take the step forward and they get to this point to challenge a Florida State for that second spot. So I really like them. Florida State scares me at 10-2. I am more confident, in my opinion, that NC State makes it to 10-2, 7-1 than I am for Florida State to make it 10-2. Florida State could F up and go 8-4. Like, DJ scares me.
Yes, that was going to be my point. Florida State, like, I have all the faith in their defense. Like, their defense is going to be solid.
Like, if you hold me up to Grayson McCall and DJ, I'm taking Grayson McCall
every time.
So that is what puts me into, I am more willing to lock in the NC State pick than I am Florida State. Yeah. And it scares me.
And the one thing I will say with DJU, though, is like he looked solid out of Oregon State last year. Like he played well.
It scares me the style of defenses.
It was more like flashes here and there, and wasn't consistent play. But like what I will give him is he probably has the most talent he's ever played with on an offense 100%. With this Florida State team.
100%.
Because even at Clemson, like he didn't have the offense surrounding him to help him out.
He had a good offensive line, but it scares me that I'm not saying quarterbacks can't get better. You see it with Joe Burrow from year 1 to year 2. You didn't even know who Joe Burrow was when he was on Ohio State's roster. You have to remember that DJ
Let
came
alone
in.
even first year at LSU,
and
everyone was like, who the fuck cares?
And DJ came in as, I believe, a freshman or a redshirt freshman to play for Clemson.
Might have been a true freshman.
And he got thrusted into that position. So it's almost like a bad taste in my mouth, but I don't trust him. That's why I'm scared about my pick for them to make the conference championship. My fourth team, now listen, my 4, 5, 6, right? So yeah, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are all at 6 and 2. I'll give you the other guys. However, I did not rank them on this tiebreaker because I'm not going to sit here and do some fucking algebra and geometry in my head to figure out who the fuck did what to give it out. So I'm just strictly my 4 through basically 8 is almost going to be a power ranking of what teams I think are the best. That being said, I still think Clemson is the 4th best team in this conference. I think they're 9 and 3, 6 and 2, same thing, same losses, right? I think that their schedule is much harder than an NC State and a Florida State's, and that's what's putting them out of contention, in my opinion. I have Virginia Tech 9 and 3, 6 and 2. The only reason I have them at 9 and 3 is because I have to stick with my guns and tell you they're losing to Vanderbilt week 1. If not, I have the same record as you, Mike, and they would be thrusted up above Clemson, right? But I've dug my grave. I've got to sit here and hope I don't fall into it. So I got to stay there with that one. So yeah, that's my top 5. To recap, Miami 1, Florida State 2, NC State 3, Clemson 4, Virginia Tech 5. Now to open up for a little discussion. I know we talked about Florida State and NC State a little bit, but man, I love NC State. I think this is the year where it's going to be a weird situation because this is the situation I have unfolding in my head. Miami will then, at this hypothetical 11-1, will turn into 12-1 if they win the conference, right? Florida State would then go to 10-3. Does the committee, I can't get this out of my head because the committee fucked Florida State last year. Let's say they don't do it again and they leave a Florida State team out of the conference or out of the playoff by losing in the conference championship and slide an NC State with one less loss because they didn't play. It sounds crazy, but after last year, anything goes. Not to mention, in the 4-team playoff, we saw this. Remember the Big Ten? Ohio State didn't fucking play in the conference championship. And they still slid in against the team that should have, what was it, Penn State or something? Who was? No, because not their side. It was the other side. There was a team that got, Penn State I thought got left out. Didn't they not?
No,
because
Penn
they're on the
State
same
lost
side.
above Michigan.
You know the
and
situation
Ohio
I'm talking
State.
about? Ohio State slid
Yeah,
in
it's
without
like 3
playing.
years ago, Ohio State slid in. It wasn't that it was a Big Ten team that stayed out. I think they left because TCU was in that year.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know. I have to look it up. But that's my situation I'm talking about. They have before taken a team outside the conference championship and put them in over a team who lost. You know what I mean? Which is wild to think about. But that's...
I mean, it's just been proof like time and time again. The 4-team playoff was a fucking disaster.
Yeah, and NC State's going to have a lot of hype if they're sitting at 10-2, 7-1, and just got left out because of a tiebreaker. So there's a lot of hype. I think Florida State fans... watch out. You could get left out. I'm just saying in this situation. Clemson. Man, Clemson's got a kind of a tough schedule. I think the Georgia game alone keeps Clemson out of contention for the playoff because that's going to give them a 3rd loss. 6-2 in the conference. This just, to me, sorry, Clemson fans out there.
22-23 when they lost to Georgia.
Okay. So... this is a team to me that is on a slow decline. Like, I'm sorry. I don't see them recruiting well. I don't see them doing anything well. They keep finishing in the top 10 for recruiting. But it's like, who the fuck are they recruiting, Mike? Are they recruiting star talent? Like, it's on the paper. They're supposed to be good. But I haven't seen anyone come into Clemson in a while and pan out as like a stud.
I mean, my big thing with Clemson has been like, defensively, it's there. Like, defensively, they are going to continue to have a top defense in all of college football. It's just offensively, it's like
But I agree.
They're throwing like these quarterbacks who could potentially be studs, like in DJU and fucking who the fuck is the guy now? It's
Cade Klubnik.
Cade Klubnik, like dudes that like have the potential to be great, but they just don't have any supporting cast. Like last year, it was Will Shipley and Will Shipley only. They had one stud receiver, but I don't even know if that receiver did much last year. Like, it didn't seem like he was a factor.
I mean, the thing with Clemson to me though is we keep saying they have a stud defense, but like. when they lose games in the ACC last year, they lost games. Like Florida State scored, 35 points?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they have a good defense, but when your offense performs as poorly as theirs did last year, this is exactly what we talked about last couple episodes in the NFL with your team, the Giants. If you keep giving the other team a shit pile of possessions and you keep turning the ball over, your defense is going to give up points, and it's going to make them look bad. Yeah. So I think that on paper they're a lot better. They're still a top 3 defense, I think, but their offense is not good. Their offense is not good. Like, it's so disappointing. They're, in my opinion, they are exactly what I argued about under Gus Malzahn when I was watching Auburn a couple years back is, yeah, they can score against most of the teams they play, but it's like their drives have to be like 10 plays. They don't have any explosive talent. So it's like, for you, in big games, that's why you can't win, because you're trying to string 10, 11-play drives together against a fucking Georgia who you're going to make a mistake. They're going to shut you down eventually. So that's my thing with Clemson. Then I have Virginia Tech, who, in all certainty, will probably finish 10-2, but I have them at 9-3. Like I said, I dug my grave with Vanderbilt. I'm sticking to that. I am not backing out on anything. I'm not one of those people on ESPN where you're going to pull back my audio and be like, well, you said so-and-so, and then I sit here and lie to you, even though you got me on film. So, yes, I said that losing to Vanderbilt. But you could easily, I think they're out because they'll be 6-2 in the conference. I don't think they're going to be that team that's in contention. So, yeah, that's my top 5. Super interesting because, like I said, you get Miami slips up once or twice in the season in the conference, and it's all of a sudden you're bringing in the top 5 into, like, potential fighting for 2 spots. Yeah. Especially with Florida State, because in my opinion, NC State and Florida State could suffer another loss, and then all of a sudden Miami suffers a loss, and you've got 5 teams. You've got 4 of them at 6-2 and 1 at 7-1. So it's like this is a really fun conference to watch this year. Only thing that sucks is that these top 5 teams don't really play each other. So that's where it sucks, unlike when we get to the Big 12 episode, where it's like we're going to have a lot of teams to talk about that make the championship, and a lot of them play each other, but I still think there's a lot of middle-of-the-road talent that they're going to be better than. So,
that's a big issue with the ACC right now is, like, with 17 teams, like, not everyone can play everyone. You're limited to 8 other guys on the entire 17-list roster.
Well, that's every conference, but I feel like the problem with ACC right now is they're bringing in teams that really have no business being in the ACC, where they could, in my opinion, yeah, you grabbed a couple Power 5 teams. I think your best pickup, in my opinion, is SMU because they're a great Group of 5 team. I wish they would went that route.
Yes.
They should have picked up more Group of 5 teams local.
And not the Pac-12 washouts and Cal and Stanford.
Up-and-coming teams that have proven that they want to compete at a high level, like a Tulane.
Liberty, Tulane,
yes.
Coastal Carolina, even, or App State.
Those are all teams in the Southeast
teams that still have like those rivalries with a lot of the other in-state guys, not dudes on the other side of the fucking country. I do agree 100% on that.
So that's my thing with them, because like you'll see, viewers, when we get down to this second half and even third half, it starts to tail off quick. That being said, let's snake it, Mike, and I'll keep going.
All right.
So I'm going to go 6 through 11. At 6, I have UNC. At 9-3, remember this is power rankings, guys, from to the 8th position, because I have 3 more teams at 6-2. It's just how I think power-wise they're going to be. I think UNC 9-3, 6-2. I think that UNC's defense will get better with the addition of their new DC. However, I'm just not big on this team. Really not. I'm actually more big on the second team, but I think the second team is going to fall to some attrition throughout the season because it's their first year in the ACC. That's SMU. SMU, I think, finishes at 9-3, 6-2.
I want to backtrack real quick. Yep. Back to UNC. You have them 9-3 on the year. Who do you have them losing to in that non-conference game?
Okay.
I'm assuming Minnesota.
No, I have. So believe it or not,
James Madison?
Yes. NC State has a problem playing in-state or local, like states teams at a smaller level, like App State last year. They should have lost that game. That is who I think their James Madison is, because you go Minnesota, Charlotte, North Central. You're probably starting to look forward to your conference play, and then I think you slip up looking forward to conference play, and you lose to JMU, which when I say slip up, still JMU could be one of those teams that fight for that group of 5 spot. I don't think they're nearly as good nearly as good this year as last year, but that is the loss I have out of conference for North Carolina, just because they always seem to have trouble with a group of 5 team that they play, even the year before that. So I think North Carolina is worse this year than last year. Talent-wise, obviously, when you lose Drake May, you're going to fall off a little bit at quarterback. Anyone in the country would, no matter who you play for. So that is where I have it, Mike. Now, not saying that they could beat JMU by 30, but I'm just saying that's the loss I have here. That is not something I'm guaranteeing at all. Just saying that is my one group of 5 team I think they struggle with when I look at the out-of-conference games they play. Personally, I think JMU is probably better than Minnesota. I don't have any faith in Minnesota, especially with being at Minnesota, but it's the first game of the season. It's still going to be hot. It's not like North Carolina's going on the road to play in the fucking snowstorm. Yeah. That would be a totally different situation. I think that you'd have to worry about.
No, I was just curious because I don't have them losing a game in non-conference. And if this was James Madison of last year, I think you got a good leg to stand on. But, I mean, they have their Cinderella story and all of their stud players, and I think even their coach, I think they bailed once when they got that good season. They got the better offers elsewhere. They dipped out, went every which way. So I think James Madison is going to be down. But I was curious, and I'm not going to flat out tell you you're wrong because I could see that absolutely happening.
Now, the next one is SMU. SMU is a team that I really, really, really like. For folks that don't know SMU football, they have the number 1 offensive line in the Power 5. The biggest jump, in the group of 5. The biggest jump that a group of 5 team has to deal with going into the Power 4 now, what we call it the Power 5, is the trenches. And I think this is one team that is equipped to come in immediately and battle some of these teams in the trenches, especially on their offensive line. They also have a very good defensive lineman. I say lineman, but here's the problem, and this is what I'm really worried about with slating them in this position. I keep saying offensive line and a defensive lineman. I think if anyone gets hurt here, you're in trouble. But as we said, these projections are barring any serious injuries. That is why I have them here purely on talent. I think their offense was literally probably the best, if not the top 3 in the group of 5 last year. And they return everybody on offense. So this is a team I'm really excited for. They could be in a lot of shootouts. I think their defense, though, is good enough to hold a lot of the teams on their schedule. The 3 losses I have, because you notice a 6-2 for 9-3, I am losing to TCU, Florida State, Louisville, all in a row.
Yep.
Reason I say that is SMU could beat TCU because I'm not huge on TCU. Problem is you have BYU the week before. So it's like you have BYU, TCU, Florida State, Louisville in a row. I think you really see that attrition there, and it starts to fucking tail off. Then, you get into a bye week going to Stanford, and I think that's where you kind of get a little more healthy, and then you just finish out the season strong, winning every game. That is what I have there. But, again, SMU's attrition, if I'm being honest, scares me in that scenario of ripping off 6 wins in a row.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have a lot of depth there, and that's
they
what
benefit
you can
from an easy
expect
schedule
from those group of 5 teams coming in. But, yeah, that back-end ACC schedule, once when they get through, because I have the exact same format. Lost TCU, lost Florida State, lost Louisville, and then winning out because, I mean, they're playing bottom-of-the-barrel ACC teams, like teams that they can absolutely compete with if healthy, like Stanford, Duke, Pitt, Boston College, Virginia, Cal.
Yep. Cal game scares me, but we'll see. I just think that SMU also, I have to give credit to their coaching staff. They brought in transfers, a lot of transfers. They brought in a lot of group of 5 and second string depth chart pieces from the Power 4 to be their depth on the defensive line. So they do know that is where they're going to struggle if there's an injury. However, they did the proactive thing and they got it immediately. However, there's still, in my opinion, going to be a huge drop-off, but it won't be as significant as if you were second string in the group of 5 when you're second string in the Power 4. So I think that was mega props to them. So going down my list, I have Louisville. 8-4, 6-2, because, like I said in the SEC episode, if you haven't listened yet, I cannot give Louisville a fucking win against Kentucky until they show it to me. I think Kentucky's won the last 5, Mike, I think is what it is. That scares me. Like, they've got to turn it around. Like, you can't keep doing that. And, man, every year I say, oh, yeah, this is the year Louisville's going to win. This is the year Louisville's going to win. And they can't get it done. So until that's one of those, you got to show it to me. I also am losing to Clemson, Miami, and Notre Dame. Those are the other three. I just think all of those teams are, I won't even say on paper, are just significantly better. I think they are. Louisville's a team I think, though, is trending in the right direction and is going to be a top-of-the-tier team in the ACC for years to come. They showed it to you last year. They won a lot of close games. I think that's the same situation here. I think, honestly, with this schedule, having Miami, Clemson, and Notre Dame on the schedule, even losing to Kentucky, 8-4, great year. Great year. I think that'd be an awesome year to celebrate as a Louisville fan. And if you can take Kentucky at the end of the year, amazing year. Because that's my ceiling I had for them, 9-3. I don't see them having a chance against Notre Dame, Miami, or Clemson. I'm sorry. I think this is not one of the games that Miami, when I talk about having that crystal ball factor of fucking up and losing to somebody, Louisville's too good of a team for them to like overlook. And this be your Georgia Tech of year, what? Are we going into year 3? Year 4? Yeah.
For what?
For crystal ball.
Year 3. 4, I believe.
Year 4? This will be, I think it's year 3 or 4, whatever it is. This is not your Georgia Tech team because they have this one circled. I can guarantee you that because it's one of the hardest games in their schedule because Miami has an easy schedule, especially in conference. So they know Louisville's coming. I think they're well prepared to beat Louisville. Clemson, too. We talk about Clemson being talent deficient. Their offense and defensive line alone at the University of Clemson is going to manhandle Louisville, and I think that's what gets them the win there. Especially Clemson playing in Death Valley, it's still a hard place to win at. You saw Florida State last year almost lose to Clemson, and Florida State was significantly better. So that is my losses for Louisville. So let's see. How many more do I got, Mike? I got 1, 2, 3. So this was 6, 7, 8. So I'm on number 9 now. I have 9. I have 3 more teams. Syracuse, 9-3, 5-3. That is what I have. Sounds crazy to think about it, but people forget Syracuse always starts off the season like 6-0, 5-0. No difference here. They're going 5-0 to start off. I think they're winning in Ohio, Georgia Tech, Stanford, Holy Cross, UNLV. I think they rip off 5 straight. I think that is huge. I think if Syracuse wants to be, well, obviously not a contender, but wants to be like, hey, we're part of that upper group with Georgia's new coach, with their new transfers in that Georgia's coach brought with them. They're definitely laying the foundation to say, hey, guys, we're here to try to force ourselves into contention for years to come. I think they take a huge step forward last year. They have a lot of good key pieces. They added the defensive player from Texas A&M that's a stud. You added Kyle McCord, which we give Kyle McCord shit. Yeah, we're giving Kyle McCord shit because he just didn't really do flashy things at Ohio State to win them games.
He wasn't the QB for them, but it doesn't mean he's a bad
We're not asking
QB.
Kyle McCord to beat Michigan and to beat Oregon and all these other teams that he has to play. We're asking you to beat a fucking Cal, Boston College, a Pitt, possibly Virginia Tech.
And
those
compete with your NC States and Miami.
I don't see that being an issue for him in this style of offense. People forget last year, Syracuse started off hot, won a bunch of games. Their quarterback got hurt, and they put a fucking wide receiver at quarterback for the rest of the year. So, yes, don't look at Syracuse's record last year and be like, this is a problem. They fixed the problem. They have a new coach. They have new transfers. Could the Kyle McCord add, low-key, if we're taking the top teams out of it, could probably be the best pickup of a team of this caliber across the entire state of college football. So I think that's huge. Their losses I have for them, just so we can list those out because we're making our predictions: NC State, Virginia Tech, and Miami. Those are my 3 losses I have. But that being said, there is a world where I can see Syracuse coming in 6-1 to host Virginia Tech, where that is a scary game as a Virginia Tech fan, to go in and have to play a 6-1 Syracuse team who's going to buy their coach. Because you have to imagine bringing over the Georgia motto of we're fucking here to win, right? And we're here to win now and build our program. That is a game where you'd have to think that those players are going to be hyped up for. Hosting a Virginia Tech, who we call a dark horse, but there's a lot of experts out there that are high on Virginia Tech. So I think it's an interesting game that could sway them to the ceiling of 10-2. But I have their record at 9-3, 5-3 overall. That is Syracuse. I owe you 2 more teams. My next is Cal, 7-5, 4-4. I know a lot of people. I don't know if you have them even remotely close, but 7-5, 4-4. I just think alone their O-line is solid. Their quarterback is a wild card. He looks good on paper. We don't know until he starts playing games, but they have arguably one of the best running backs in the country with Jaden Ott. I think Jaden Ott, a lot of people are talking about, the Boise kid, Ollie Gordon.
Jaunty.
I just think that Jaden Ott is not getting the name recognition because he's not on a winning football team. But this guy, in my opinion, is easily he has downhill running. I think you could see him easily go in the NFL and be like a second string running back getting snaps. He has the talent to do it. He has a talent to even somehow fight a way to get a majority of the snaps on an NFL team. He's just at Cal. Now, that being said, 7-5, 4-4, I think would be a good season first year in the ACC. They are not like SMU and benefited from a really easy schedule. They do have to play NC State, FSU, and Miami, who are all at the top of this conference, which is very difficult. They also have an odd out-of-conference game at Auburn, which is scary. Like, I'm an Auburn fan, so I'm not going to tell you that they're going to get smashed because that's my bias, but honestly, they have a better chance to get smashed than for them to win this game. Going into Jordan-Hare after, I guarantee you, Auburn players having to hear how much of a disappointment and embarrassment that was to, you should have lost the game. So Auburn's going to be ready for that game, especially with Auburn playing Alabama A&M week 1. So I just don't see that happening. I do have them beating Oregon State. I think Oregon State fans, I think you're going to have a really bad year. I think the fact that you got left out of all conferences and you're playing this partner up with the Mountain West bullshit and your players left, you lost DJ, I just can't see it happening. I see Cal winning this game, and it's an out-of-conference game that is literally, on the West Coast. So I like it. I like the matchup for Cal. I see the win there. I think they lose to SMU at the end of the season. I think SMU wins that game. However, I think it's going to be extremely close. This is a game, in my opinion, where you have Cal coming from the Pac-12. Even though it's Cal, it's going to have a significant amount of depth compared to SMU. And this being the last game of the season scares me as an SMU fan. So Cal loses that game ultimately, I think, but that is where I get the 7-5, 4-4. They can easily win that game and get to their ceiling of 8-4 and 5-3 in the conference. That's where I have Cal. Now here's my significant drop-off.
So hold on. I think you already hit your 5 teams for the 6 through 10. Give me a recap of your teams real quick.
UNC, SMU, Louisville, Syracuse, and Cal. You're right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yep. The drop-off hasn't really happened yet unless you count the Cal 7-5 as drop-off, but they're still 4-4 in the conference. So it's not a huge drop-off. It's not a 2-game gap like my next game will be.
Yeah.
But go ahead, and then we'll debate it a little bit.
So, we're going to be doing a lot of green. I have the same exact 5 teams here. I just have different orders. So I got top 3 teams with 6-2 conference schedules. Louisville at the top. Louisville, they were in the conference championship last year.
What do you have Louisville schedule at?
I have them at 8-4 overall, 6-2 in the conference.
So we have the exact same.
I have them with a loss to Notre
your power
Dame,
ranking has
Miami,
higher.
Clemson, and Kentucky.
Okay. Yeah.
Very talented team. They had a good transfer portal. My area of concern with this team is the quarterback position. So they lost Plummer last year. I don't know if he went to the transfer portal or if he went to the draft or what happened to him.
I believe in the transfer portal.
Yeah, couldn't tell you to be sure. But their guy coming in, this dude named Tyler Show over from Texas Tech. I don't know a lot about him.
So, if you want me to briefly touch on Tyler Show.
Go ahead.
Tyler Show on paper is a fucking stud. Problem with Tyler Show is I think he's like a 4th year or 5th year at this point. I think it's 4.
I have their depth chart pulled up.
I think it's 3 or 4, Mike. Check 3 to 5, somewhere in that range. Problem is Tyler Show has not played a full season. He is hurt every single season. He's gotten medal redshirted before.
He's a graduate transfer.
Yeah, so that's the thing, though. But I don't think he's played a full season yet. So when you look at it, he got hurt every year at some point. And this is a guy where I think can change Louisville's whole aspect on the conference if he stays healthy. So keep that in mind when we talk about that. That's just my little knowledge to drop on Tyler Show.
Yeah, looking at his stats, he doesn't look like he's played a full season.
No, he's been hurt every season. He started for Texas Tech every year, or when he was there.
He was at Oregon for a few years too, but he barely played.
People forget he was still like a 4-star kid. So he has the talent. Just can he stay healthy? It scares you. Go ahead.
Just going back to my list. I'm very big on Louisville. I'm not trusting in that quarterback position right now. After them, I got Clemson, 6-2. Overall record 9-3. Lost to Georgia, lost to Virginia Tech, and a loss to FSU. They don't play a lot of teams outside of those big conference games of Virginia Tech and FSU. I think versus NC State will be a tester. A little bit of a rivalry with South Carolina and North Carolina teams. But with it being in Death Valley, I believe you already touched on that. I just give Clemson the edge there. I think they're just too talented and beefy of a team that even if they only score 20 points, I think they're a team that could hold NC State. After them, I got Louisville, 6-2. Wait, I'm tripping.
You said Louisville. Mike's in a blender.
Yeah, no, I'm tripping. So 6 is Louisville. Clemson was my 5. I just backtracked for some fucking reason. 7, I have UNC. UNC is a team that I think is taking a step down. However, they play a very, very easy conference schedule outside of FSU and NC State. I mean, you got Duke, Pitt, Georgia Tech, Virginia, FSU, Wake Forest, Boston College, NC State. You already talked a little bit about they have a new defensive coordinator coming out. I think that can hopefully fix the awful defense that we've seen from them in the previous years. They did get a transfer of Max Johnson from Texas A&M to come play quarterback, and I was a big fan of Max Johnson.
Yeah, he's very good. Very good.
When he was healthy and when he was playing, because he had to take over the starting role, I believe, for Weigman last season, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I thought he played absolutely phenomenal. I'm a big fan of him. However, it's still going to be a downgrade because you just had top 3 pick Drake May leave for the draft. They got a very easy schedule to try to compete. I think overall this team is going down, but they benefit from the schedule. I have them 10-2, 6-2 in the conference. After them, I got SMU. I have them going 9-3, 6-2 overall. Same as you said, those back-to-back losses, TCU, Florida State, Louisville. And then again, just a pretty light schedule after there. Not much to talk about. I mean, I think you hit all the talking points with them. Mm-hmm. After there, sorry, I just fucking had to breathe for a minute. Cal, 4-4 in the conference. I have, where are they at? 5-7 overall, 4-4 on the conference. Lost to Auburn, lost to San Diego State, lost to FSU, lost to Miami, lost to NC State, lost to Oregon State. I think this is a team that, like, they have talent, but they're racking up a ton of air miles, having to fly to Florida State, having to fly to Pitt, having to fly to Wake Forest, and then having to fly again to SMU. After there, they also have to fly to Auburn. Like, they're just going all over the country. I think they lead the nation in air miles traveled this year for them joining the ACC, which, again, we've talked about is fucking stupid. But it's something that we got to live with. They have talent, but a lot of these other teams that they play are all just fucking more talented everywhere on the field. They have a couple of nice pieces, but they lost a ton of weapons in the portal, and they gained some new receivers. I don't know if these receivers are going to help them out at all, but we'll have to see. But I'm just not a big fan of these West Coast teams joining the Atlantic Conference. After there, I got Syracuse, 4-4 on the conference. A lot of the same points you had. I think it was a team that's going up. I really like the overhaul with the roster with their coach that came from Georgia, Fran Brown. Kyle McCord, quarterback. Again, we shit on him. He just wasn't the quarterback for OSU. I think he can be a decent quarterback in the right offense, but he's not a, like you said, championship winner. He just can't be the guy in a big program like Ohio State. But this team benefits from a very easy schedule. So I have them going 8-4, 4-4 in the conference. They played non-conference against Ohio, Holy Cross, UNLV, and UConn. Those should all be 4 wins. This team's more talented and can just beat down and bully all those other teams. But when you get down to, like, versus Georgia Tech scares me. But I have them winning this game. At NC State, I don't think they can hang out with them. Versus Virginia Tech, I don't think they can hang out with them. At Cal, I don't think they can hang out with Cal at California. Having to fly all the way there, I just don't think that's a matchup that's in their favor. And then they ended off in Miami. That's personally a game that scares me. As a Miami fan, like, this is a talented team. This is a team that wants to prove that they got it. They're led by some winning coaches. It's a game that I have circled as a potential upset, but I'm going to go with the favorite. I'm going to keep leading with Miami on that one. But I'll rack it up for my 6 through 10.
Okay. I mean, I agree with 90% of them. There's not much to touch on for this area. I do think Syracuse will get it done at Cal. It is a scary game, and I think they'll lose to Miami just because Miami will have too much riding on at the end of the season to slip up. I think if Miami slips up, it's in the first to middle half. But that being said, yeah, I mean, let's do this. Give me your next 4 teams, because I think the next 4, in my opinion, are a little better than the final 3. So go ahead and rattle off your next 4.
All right, so at 11, I got Duke. I have them going 2-6 in the conference. They're 6-6 overall. They have a very easy non-conference schedule with Elon, Northwestern, UConn, Middle Tennessee State.
I'm not going to lie, we're going to have a big difference on that team.
Once we get the conference schedule, I think they couldn't have drafted a harder schedule, and you'll see this theme with some of these bottom-tier teams. I don't think Duke is awful. However, they lost a fucking ton this offseason. Head coach took off to go to Texas A&M. Bunch of dudes followed. Riley Leonard, who I thought would follow him Texas A&M, but probably decided, hey, I don't want to battle Weigman for the spot because he's also a fucking great quarterback. So the GOAT, Riley Leonard, decided to go to Notre Dame. Wish he would have stayed. Loved Riley Leonard.
Yeah, but it's just like a death sentence for him. Why not go to a team that can make the college football playoff?
Yeah, a team that realistically has a chance, but,
could force you to be the number 1 quarterback taken with a good season this year.
Yeah, but, I mean, he's barring health and everything.
Yeah.
So to fix that hole, they gained Malik Murphy from Texas, who was the backup QB. I believe he was number 2 behind.
Yeah, he is, for folks out there that don't know Malik Murphy, in my opinion, is like the same build as the guy that just went to plays for the Patriots now.
Joe Milton?
Yes. He reminds me of Joe Milton. Big, tall, strong arm, deep arm, but in my opinion, only has the fastball and can throw fucking missiles and deep routes. Doesn't really have the touch. Yeah. That's the kind of comp to that, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I don't know a lot about him. I know he was a backup. He was projected to be the starter until Quinn Ewers decided he's coming back. So,
yeah, and now in this, if I had to be honest, I think that he would get jumped by Manning if they really had to play him this year.
Yeah, so, I could see that. I think it would be a battle that would have went through the offseason into
why
the
not
summer.
Play a freshman that has all the upside compared to a guy who's going to go out the door here soon?
For sure. But, I mean, when you look at their schedule when it comes to the conference play, versus UNC, at Georgia Tech, again, I think Georgia Tech's a good team and can compete with this Duke team.
Are you still on
Duke?
That's what I thought.
Lost to FSU, lost to SMU, lost to at Miami, at NC State, lost. Like, that's a tough schedule. Virginia Tech ended out.
Who's your 2 wins?
My 2 wins is Georgia Tech and Wake Forest.
Sleeping on the fucking GT, baby.
I
think GT on paper has better players than Duke this year, though.
We'll get to them. I like Georgia Tech, but they have a tough schedule, and I just don't know because I was super big on Duke last year.
It's just a big game, I think, the Georgia Tech and it's at home. Not that they have a big home field advantage, but they still have a lot of people show up for their games in Atlanta. So
I'm curious to see how that racks out because I hate to put Duke any lower because I was so big on them last year, but they lost so fucking much.
Yeah, I mean, the coach, in my opinion, is leaving is huge. I mean,
he turned that program
Duke.
around.
Yeah, like he is Duke the last couple of years. Obviously with Riley Leonard's help, but who do you think brought Riley Leonard in?
Exactly. After there, I got Wake Forest, 2-6 in the conference, 5-7 overall again. This is just a team that I'm not impressed with. I don't really have any high points to this team that I can get behind. Last year they were the worst team in the ACC. They didn't have any crazy losses in the transfer portal, but they didn't really have any crazy gains either. I mean, they did lose their number 1 receiver on the team, which is Jamal Banks. But, I mean, their number 1 receiver is probably most teams' number 3 receiver. They got a new QB from Louisiana Tech. They benefit greatly from a very easy non-conference game outside of Ole Miss. That's the big scary one. Don't give them a fucking shot. But it's just a team that I don't care for. I have their only 2 conference wins being versus Virginia and at Stanford. And I don't even want to give them that at Stanford.
Yeah, we will definitely get to that.
Let's see. And then I have 2 more I have to give you. Yeah.
Yes.
So then I got Pitt, again, 2-6 in the conference. Another team that I'm just not in love with. They have no notable, really, improvements in the portal. Their non-conference games are teams of similar talent, which is also bad. They play Kent State. They go to Cincy. Then they play West Virginia, which they're getting blown the fuck out. West Virginia is a good team this year. They're beating them down. And then they play versus Youngstown State. Going into their conference schedule, UNC, Cal, Syracuse, SMU, I have those all as losses. Going to Virginia, hosting Virginia, that's going to be a win. Hosting Clemson, loss. At Louisville, loss. At Boston College, that's a game I can see going either way. Not in love with either team. I'm going to give Pitt the benefit of the doubt. Going to my last team is Boston College. Just starting to see a theme here. Not a lot of love with this team. They got a new coach, Bill O'Brien, which I think could lead to a very promising future. Dude was a great offensive coordinator in the NFL, and he's been a great coach at the collegiate level. He's very good at recruiting. He's very good offensive schemes. And they got good depth in the portal, but they really just lost more than they could fill this year. With the new coach, it's going to come the fucking struggles early on. But I think in the long run, Boston College is a team that you could see be like a future dark horse in a couple seasons. Don't quote me on that. But I mean, like, this is a team I could see having good projection and growth. When it comes to their non-conference games, Duquesne, however the fuck you say that.
You got it right the first time.
All right. Mizzou, Michigan State, Western Kentucky. I can see them going 2-2 non-conference, maybe 1-3. But then when you come to their actual conference schedule, FSU, loss. Virginia, win.
First game for Boston College this season, rough.
Yeah.
At Florida State, what do you want to do there?
Especially when Florida State already has their warm-up with Georgia Tech.
It's a 7:30 night game.
Yeah, it's just not set up for success. Then you go to Virginia Tech, hosting Louisville, hosting Syracuse, at SMU, hosting UNC, hosting Pitt. I only can see them maybe winning in the game they host Pitt outside of at Virginia. So ceiling of 2 conference games, I'm only going to give them 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'll start right off because my next best team on mine to rattle off my next 4 is Boston College. I have Boston College at 5-7, 2-6. I have them with their big signature win of the season, even though this team is down, but going in the right direction, is Michigan State. I have them beating Michigan State. I think that is the big signature win in Bill O'Brien's first year. I think he'll rally the troops. It's a big brand, so I think that this is the team that they take the win from, especially with Boston College having them at home. So I think that is the big signature win. But their 5 wins I have is Duquesne, Michigan State, Western Kentucky, Virginia, and I do think that he's able to rally the troops to finish the season on a high note and beat Pitt. Personally, I think Pitt's coach is going out. Like I think he's had his season. You had your quarterback. Last year was an utter fucking disaster, and I think this year is going to be worse. I think they're just bad. Like, he's not it. He's not the guy. You played tough games the past couple of years. You played Tennessee tough. Obviously you invented the fake slide.
That pissed me off fucking much.
Had some things going for you.
Hatred towards Kenny Pickett early.
Had some things going for you. But ultimately, Boston College, signature win. I think they go 5-7, 2-6 in the conference. I have the next one. I have 2 teams at 4-8. Put them whatever way you want. I'll just go to the next one. Pitt, 4-8, 1-7 in the conference. Pitt, like you said, like I just said, I think the coach is on the way out. Pitt, if you want to maintain relevance, because the last couple of years you have been towards the top of the ACC, barring last year, I'm saying 2 years before that, you got to make a move. He's not the guy. He's not doing anything in the fucking recruiting or transfer portal. 4-8, 1-7 in the conference. Your 1 win in the conference being against Virginia, who I think ultimately is a scary game. Virginia got hot at the end of the season, and I'm thinking they're trending in the right direction. He just had an absolute impossible way to win last year with the disaster that happened on campus with the 3 players tragically dying. But Virginia, that is a scary game to me because that is a game that Virginia could get a staple win right there in the ACC. So it does scare me. 4-8, 1-7 Pitt. I have Wake Forest, 4-8, 1-7. That being said, this kind of rolls in. I know Mike's about to check the schedule, but this kind of rolls into where I think Stanford gets their 1 win. And like we talked about, Wake Forest going all the way across the country to Stanford scares me. Stanford's a terrible football team, but could this be Stanford's 1 win in the conference? Hosting a team all the way from the East Coast that is not a great football team. So I think this could be the upset win for the Stanford Cardinals. That's what puts Wake at the 4-8, 1-7. That being said, let's go to a team that ultimately, in my opinion, could be all the way up with the ranks of Cal if they had a better schedule as 7-6 win football team, and this is Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
This is a team that is trending in the right direction, and Georgia Tech fans, you just need to close your eyes and hibernate and wait till next season. Don't get crazy and start saying, we got to get this coach out of here. This is the guy. He's bringing in talent. You've got a shitload of young talent. You still have a pretty good quarterback that you brought in the transfer portal with Haynes King from Texas A&M. I think this is your guy. I think your schedule is absolutely impossible starting off with FSU. Georgia State is even a pretty good group of 5 team. So it's like, but you're going to win that. Syracuse, got to be hot this year. We talked about that. But don't count them out. That is a game where I think could derail Syracuse's season if they somehow can pull that off. Georgia Tech is just sneaky good. You saw what they did last year to Miami. You saw them play Louisville. Should have won that game. So this is a team where it's like, in my opinion, if you are a top-tier ACC team, this is the team that you got to watch. This is the guys that you can't overlook. They've got the talent to beat you. That being said, still 3-9, 1-7 with wins to Georgia State, VMU, and I have them beating Duke. I just think that Georgia Tech, believe it or not, on paper has better talent than Duke. I just think Georgia Tech's, must have pissed off the ACC commissioner because you end the season with UNC, Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, Miami, NC State, Georgia. That's just criminal. That is criminal. We talk about Florida having a tough finishing schedule. Georgia Tech's looking around going, what about us, guys? You forgot about us. Only difference is Florida, because their out-of-conference game is so fucking hard. That's what puts them ahead at the beginning of the season, having UCF and Miami. But arguably, this is one of the hardest 6-game stretches in football. So
that was what I'm glad you harped on that. Who the fuck did Georgia Tech piss off in the ACC commission?
I don't know, because, I don't know what the ACC's plan is next year, because I know the SEC just said, we don't want to deal with rescheduling. We don't really know how the era of college football and everything's going to shake out, so we're just going to flip the schedule. Whoever you had home is not going to be away, and vice versa. If they do this to Georgia Tech, I would file fucking charges. This is horseshit. You're literally sinking a program into the ground because of this end of the year. You always got to finish with Georgia, and what do? Thanks, guys. Put NC State there a week before. So I'm like, dude, that is bullshit. I'd be pissed. Where is my VMI to slide into that slot?
Literally 3 of the teams I have making a chance at the conference championship, they play back to back to back.
Arguably, if we're trying to get crazy here, you have 1, I'll leave out Louisville. 1, I'll leave out UNC. 2, 3, 4, 5 teams that could make the playoff in your 12-game schedule. The 5 being FSU, Notre Dame, Miami, NC State, and Georgia. And then we leave out the likes of a dark horse of Virginia Tech.
Yeah, I was about to say, I would also put Virginia Tech in that same conversation.
And a team of Louisville who, if their quarterback stays healthy, is going to be a team fighting towards the top of the ACC. So it's like, I don't know what y'all did, but man.
Thanks for handing me Duke.
And Georgia State's no chump. Georgia State is a good football team. They have good talent. They're one of the better group of 5 teams. So it's just like, man, that is just horseshit. But Duke, 5-7, so they have a better conference than Georgia Tech. But power ranking, like I said, because they're all tied 1-7. I have Georgia Tech being a much better team than Duke, in my opinion. Just barring everything Duke lost. When you lose your coach, that was arguably one of the best coaches you've had in a long time, and probably the best quarterback you've had in probably 20 years. Don't quote me on that.
Hey now. Daniel Jones.
Okay, I'm still going to stay with that. Riley Leonard is a better quarterback than Daniel Jones. We'll have to wait and see when the NFL comes around. But
I really like Riley Leonard. That puts me in a tough spot.
Yeah, it does. Doesn't it? I knew I was going to throw you for a loop, and I wrote that note down. I was like, I wonder what Mike's reaction is going to be here, because Mike would gladly right now trade Daniel Jones in for Riley Leonard.
Hey, now hold on. Let's wait till this season plays out. All right.
I guarantee
I'm giving
you,
DJ
the upside,
one more fucking
upside
year.
with the small contract. Mike's like, yeah, let's take him. This is good for the Giants organization. But I would not be surprised if you end up seeing somehow Giants have a bad season, they pick up Riley Leonard. Mike would be extremely happy. Don't let him fool you.
If Daniel Jones has a bad year and we go for quarterback, I'd be so fucking hyped for Riley Leonard. I don't care what any of the haters say. This dude's a fucking baller.
But so I just thought that was funny. I wrote that note down. But going into Duke, 5-7, 1-7 in the conference. The one win I have is a Wake Forest at the end of the year in the conference play. I have them ripping off 4-0 though, and who knows? 4-0 going into North Carolina.
Another team that's projected to have a down year, like
down
they
year for
filled
them,
more
but
of
still
their
towards
gaps.
the top.
Yeah,
But who knows? Like, I also have them losing at Georgia Tech. We talked about that. I just think that's a game that Georgia Tech still is a better team. I think they're going to prove it. I think they have a much better quarterback. I think you're going to see. But, hey, you never know. Duke could prove me wrong. I mean, somehow you get – who knows? You somehow beat UNC or Georgia Tech, and all of a sudden you're sitting there with one loss and in the first 6 games, and ESPN might get a hard on and play in the top 25 just so you can get pounded the next 4 games in a row with some of the 4 best teams in the ACC. But 5, I just saw Virginia Tech's underneath it. I just overlooked them. I don't know what I was looking at. But, yeah, next 5 games, you're really fucked. So, sorry, guys. There's another one where you guys really pissed somebody off. I don't know if this is a theme. But it's like
the lower teams are just getting bullied.
Well, it's not even that. It's like when I look at the SEC, even someone like outside of Florida, like even Arkansas has a tough schedule, they're spread out. It's like the ACC said, we'll just half load these teams.
Let's just load it up. Let's just make sure they're hurting.
Could there be a little conspiracy around that the ACC really wants as many teams as possible in the playoff for make them money and to hold their conference solid of teams leaving, so they fucking gave the
bad teams
gave the good teams the last 6 games being shit games.
They play like one other competitor, and then this rest is pretty like bottom barrel, mid-level.
That might be something to look into, because I'm dead serious. You could not convince me that they didn't think about that, because
I like what you're saying, but as an ACC fan, like, how about we just don't bring that to light? We can just cut that last.
Yeah, but I mean, it makes sense, because the one thing I can say the ACC is for you to get 3 teams in the playoff, and all of a sudden people are like, wow, the ACC is actually not that bad.
We're back.
Yeah, so I think they ultimately did do that, and it really fucking hurt these bottom teams. These bottom teams, I'd be salty. I would be salty, because here's my conspiracy to make it even more to light. The one team that you brought in that is going to be decent right off the bat, you gave the easiest schedule to. That's SMU. Mm-hmm. So that's something to look into. Faux show. That being said, that was it. So I'll keep snaking down to my final. Or I even went into
before we move on. I do want to make one more point with Georgia Tech. Like, what is college football? 85-man rosters, something like that.
I don't know. I mean, they'll usually have 100 guys on the sideline, but you only have like
active players. Like,
no, you only have like 55 or 60 that are like. Think of it. What is it? You get 25 a year scholarship, I think is what it is.
Something around there.
So you ultimately have no, that can't be right. 100? No, it's got to be
I think
less
it's
than
85 active players.
Yeah, I think it's 80 scholarship players or something like that.
Well, they lost 31 scholarship players in the transfer portal. They only gained 14. Most of them.
Georgia Tech?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that being said, though, I still think Georgia Tech has a lot of young pieces. That being said, I think a lot of the young guys that come in are going to immediately get playing time, and I think they're better than the guys who left, but yeah, I see your point.
60th in the portal. They only gained 14 players
back.
Well,
who wants to sign up to come to this? 3-9.
Yeah, only one of them is going to be a potential starter, and that's one of their guards. Yeah. And he came from, where is it? Right guard Rutledge from Middle Tennessee State. So the transfer portal just wasn't kind to them. Yep,
and so I'll rattle off my last 3. I already talked about Duke. I actually went one team too far. So I have Stanford at 3-9, 1-7. I have Stanford stealing, like I said, the one game against Wake Forest. Wake Forest, I think, is a better team. Stanford's really bad, but the traveling across the country, I think, plays a huge part into that, dropping 3 hours back. Then my last team, man, this hurts me, because let me tell you something. This team, I think, ultimately will trend in the right direction. And I think last year you saw it at the end of the season. So for me to tell you that I think Virginia's going 1-11, 0-8, scares me, because I do think they can beat Pitt towards the end of the season. I do think they could upset someone like a Louisville or someone like a UNC. You saw it at the end. They played Louisville to the wire. Louisville got some weird fucking tip pass down the sideline to score later in the game. Like, this is a team that definitely bought what their coach was buying towards the end, and props to them, because that shows that they're buying into their coach. That team could have easily folded with how bad it started. Bad. Remember the out-of-conference games they were losing right off the bat? Bad. So it wouldn't surprise me. I'm going to say this. This is going to sound crazy. They could, if they come out as hot as they did last season, you could see a 3-0 Virginia off the bat, in my opinion. You could beat Wake Forest. You could beat Maryland. I think Maryland is going to be a lot worse than people realize. Okay? A lot worse. This is not the Maryland that played Ohio State close last year.
Yeah, you don't have Tagovailoa anymore.
No. So I think that's not crazy. I mean, soundbite that, clip it. They could start 3-0. I have their ceiling, which is going to sound wild, at 5-7. Like, this is a team, in my opinion, that if they can continue what they did at the end of last season, they can beat Richmond, they can beat Wake Forest, they can beat Maryland, they could beat a team like Boston College, they could beat a team like Pitt, they could beat a team like Coastal. These are games that they could win. So I think that when I say 1-11, take that with a grain of salt, because in my opinion, Mike, this is a team that I'm going to revisit after week 2. If this is a team that even plays Wake Forest to the wire, I think I revisit their schedule. I just don't know what to think of them. I have them on their floor because I don't know what's going on in Virginia. I don't follow Virginia football close, but I did enjoy watching them at the end of the season because they had some Thursday night games that were really fun to watch. And I turned the game on and watched the second half of them playing Louisville because I'm like, holy shit, Louisville's going to screw up right here and not make the conference final. So I think this is a team that could steal off some wins. And, man, I would love nothing more than for them to somehow start off fucking 5-0 and steal a Pitt game and make a fucking bowl game. That would be – they're not going to do it ever. Like, not saying Virginia's not going to do it. I'm saying ESPN and the sports writers and the AP poll would never do it. But, man, if this team somehow won 6 games, mark the man up for Coach of the Year with the back half of their schedule. This is another team that got fucked. So it's like, man, y'all started off 5-0. Congratulations. You now play Louisville, Clemson, UNC, Pitt. You could win. Notre Dame, SMU, Virginia Tech. It's like, I don't know what y'all did, but you pissed somebody off as well. Sorry, the conspiracy theory sounded more and more likely at this point. But there would be nothing more. I will be the biggest Virginia Tech fan. Guys, we have so much.
Virginia Tech or Virginia?
Virginia fan, I'm sorry. We'd have so much for you guys coming up soon with us potentially starting to film these episodes. You will see me. If this team rips off 3-0, week 4, I'm coming in and I'm wearing Virginia gear live on camera. I'll be like, all right, Mike, can they beat Coastal? Can they do it? It's possible. This is not Coastal with Grayson McCall. So I am like, I'd be on it. They rip off a Coastal win, I'm riding Virginia gear into week 5. Can they do it, Mike? Can they beat BC? So I am rooting for Virginia. I'll be a big fan for them this year. I think they're really exciting to talk about if they can build off the end of last year. Mike, roll in to your final 3.
All right, so my final 3, I have Georgia Tech down there. We already harped on them enough. Like, this is a solid team. They lost a ton of transfers, but fuck, dude. Like, I don't need to harp into their schedule again. Like, I have them going 1-7 in the conference. They could sneak away a second win.
Who's this? I'm sorry?
Georgia Tech. I have them going 2-10 with 1 win, or sorry, 3-9 with 1 win in the conference.
Same, It's just brutal.
It's just rough, man. I feel bad. Georgia Tech, fuck you guys for what you did to Miami and derailed our season last year.
Dude, next year
this is immediate fucking karma. I hope you fucking eat shit.
If the ACC flips and this goes, you're going home and away like what I just talked about, could you see these smaller teams trying to help out the big teams? Like, yes, please leave the conference because this is bullshit.
Yeah, I take back all my apologies. Fuck you, Georgia Tech. I hope you fucking get everything you fucking deserve. After them, I got Stanford, 0-8 in the conference. This is a team I don't feel love for. I think they got one absolute stud receiver. I want to say his name's Concepcion.
It's the guy that absolutely...
I think he came from NC State.
He's the guy that mossed Travis Hunter in the end zone late towards the game.
Screw that. I'm fucked up. That's Ayomanor.
Who?
Ayomanor. A-Y-O.
Is that his name? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I got him in my NC fucking dynasty right now over at
He's a dog.
FIU. Got him to transfer. Fucking beast. But yeah, dude had I think it was 300 yards or just shy of 300 yards against Colorado.
Yeah, it was insane. He was a one-man army. Him and the big white tight end they have is pretty raw.
Yeah, head top Travis Hunter to win the game pretty much. But yeah, outside of that, don't think this team's good. They have a lot of struggles. And then at the end, Virginia, I know Nick was just hyping them up. I think this is one of the worst fucking football programs in college football. I don't see them trending in the right direction.
That's why it was a fucking great coaching job to turn it around at the end.
They started competing for games near the end. It had me kind of shook. I think they probably lost me a couple bets because I was just
the Louisville one for sure. Louisville was like a 20-point favorite, and they fucking should have lost.
Yeah, but I mean, this is not a team I see trending in the right direction. They did not make any fucking real improvements anywhere to their roster. I literally have here, whatever their over-under wins are, take the under. I have them winning 1 game at Richmond, and I don't even really feel confident about this team coming out there and beating Richmond
because of last year. Yeah, at the beginning of the season. I agree, but it's just this. I can't I can't take away the end of the season of last year out of my mind, and that's why I want to root for them.
I think they have all the heart. They have the underdog mentality, and they can compete with some of these other teams. I just don't think the final score is going to come in their favor.
No, and I think the coach, though, is in an impossible situation last year. So I think that this team is going to be head and shoulders better, not because of roster additions, but because of you're not out there, thinking about the tragedy the first 5 games of the season and being like, oh, our guys aren't out here with us. So I think that's what you saw at the end of the season last year. I think that's what makes them better. This is one of the only teams I'll ever say, because they're in a weird situation where it's like, you made no additions, you got better. That's what I think, just because of the aura behind them.
What was Marshall's record the year they came back from the plane crash?
We are Marshall. I don't know. Did they win one game? It's 1975, right?
I think it was 1971.
You looking it up?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a similar situation, both tragic. And the worst part, too, was the one guy died, saving his classmates. So it's just an awful situation.
Yeah, 1971, they ended up going 2-8.
Yeah, and I think that's what you saw last year with this Virginia team. But Marshall did get better as the years to come. So I think that Virginia can do that as well. Obviously, big difference between losing your entire...
1972, they went 2-8 as well.
Okay, yeah, but I'm sure it's a little better too.
Maybe we've just continued fast forwarding. Maybe
let's get to when Randy Moss was there. Was that 10 years later or so? 20 years later? 30 years? 30 years later, I think. I'm not saying Virginia's on a 30-year rebuild plan. There's a big difference between the University of Virginia and Marshall.
Yeah, and to do a quick recap, for my contenders, I have Miami, Florida State, Virginia Tech, and NC State as my 4 true contenders in the ACC this year. I think Clemson's going to get left out a little bit just in the talent differential, same with Louisville. My big key point with Miami is even if we drop week 1 to Florida, it doesn't affect us at all when it comes to the conference. I think it'll be big because that's a game we want to win, and if we can beat that, bro, we're riding the fucking high to the promised land at that point.
And to build on to your thing, this conference is similar to the Big 12 in the fact that you could convince me that the top 5 teams I have of Miami, Florida State, NC State, Clemson, and Virginia Tech could all win the conference. Yeah. You could convince me that could happen in a world.
I think they're all teams that could potentially make a playoff spot. Not all 5 of them,
obviously,
at a single time.
But they all have the ability to make the playoffs.
Exactly.
Yes.
They all have the ability to try to get there.
Yep.
They got to put it together. They have to fucking...
I mean, I'm almost ready to rip off an NC State. I'll tell you right now, if NC State beats Tennessee, you need to go ahead and lay the lumber on the odds. They'll still be plus money to make the playoff, but you need to do it.
NC State's a team I'm going to root for. I don't have to play them as a Miami fan. Outside of Miami, I love NC State. I love the way they're going. I've been a big fucking...
I think you're about to see how good Grayson McCall was at Coastal.
And I'm ready for it. I want to see how he does at this. Now that he's got better athletes, better skill, better coaches, I want to see how they do. I'll be rooting for them all the way up
one of the best
we
fan
have to play
bases
them.
in college football. They're going to bring the juice in a home field environment. So this is a team that is ready to make the playoff. They have an awesome atmosphere. A lot of people remember, didn't Florida State fucking butcher the game 2 years ago and lose to them? Remember at the end, they threw a fade route that got picked off and they could have kicked a field goal to win? Remember that shit?
Yes.
So NC State always puts teams like that in the blender when they come there. I remember being an Auburn fan, having to play NC State, being undefeated week 6 on the road on a Thursday night and get absolutely fucking smoked. So this is just a weird team. Clemson. Ask Clemson if they like NC State. Clemson always gets to NC State, and they're like the Auburn of the SEC, and it's like, y'all aren't that good this year. But, man, when you're at home, it's like weird shit happens. So I just really like NC State. Now they're a contender. I don't see any way that they, go worse than 9 wins. I think this is a 10, potentially 11-win football team with a win against Tennessee, if that would be how they got to the 11.
And as a guy, not regarding to football at all, but as a guy who spent his very juvenile, delinquent years of his low 20s in the state, can't say great state of North Carolina, but the state of North Carolina.
They have a very cool campus.
NC State was such a fun fucking party school, dude.
They have a very cool campus.
I've been trashed so many times in those fucking dorms.
In my opinion, they're the one team in that Tri-County area where you've got UNC very close by. You've got Wake Forest.
Very posh.
Duke is in there. You have all these teams that are like, let me sip my wine holding my one finger. And then it's like you got NC State's like,
party,
let's do
dude.
keg stands and fuck people up out
We're
here.
fucking ripping lines and fucking doing fucking keg stands. We're fucking out here
This is
jamming.
like the Mississippi State versus Ole Miss. You got the fucking rich people and you got the people that want to have fun. So I think NC State, why can you not root for them? This has been a long time coming for them. They've been so close some years, but then they always fall off.
They've
This
been
has
on
got
like
to
the
be the year.
slowest incline, and I think we're finally getting to where they're here.
This is one of those teams I was talking to you about and one of our coworkers arguing about the transfer portal. This is one of the teams that took advantage of it.
Yes.
Went from a team that's like an 8-win, 7-win football team. It's like, oh, transfer portal's here? Looks around. You guys can't see me on the camera right now. I'm looking around. They're like, there's no regulations with this shit? Okay, yeah, we're all on board. Let's go. So this is one of those teams that, kudos to them, they've put themselves in a couple of years right into the contention.
I will root for NC State up until the point that Miami has to play them in the conference championship if that comes down to it.
Yeah, it could happen. Could happen. That's just one DJ interception away from them being in that position. So until next time, guys, we really appreciate you guys listening to these. We've got a lot coming. Check out the YouTube. We're going to have some video shorts up there. Some of our crazy takes. You will hear my Vanderbilt take on there. Go ahead and favorite that shit and save it so everyone can flame me after week 1. I'm ready for it. I'm here. I don't back out on that shit. So until next time, guys,
Big 12's
follow
up
us.
next Thursday. You'll see it air.
So Thursday we'll release that, like Mike said here, to the Big 12. And then next Tuesday we will finish it off with the Big 10. And then, folks, Thursday will be our first preview game for Georgia Tech, Florida State game. So excited. Until next time.
Yep.